have a better day tomorrow. No doubt about it. Got to give me a couple seconds here. I got to get a few things ready. Sorry for the delay. We'll try to get our stuff together another day. No, no, no. All right. We have video queued up here. It's brought to you by Fox News. The title of the video is FBI Misses Key Deadline in Hunter Biden Investigation.
Oversight Committee says the Biden family has received millions of dollars from its overseas business dealings, and lawmakers
No way!
The FBI is covering up the scheme.
Brooke Singman is here now to tell us more. Good morning, Brooke. Hey, good morning. That's right. The FBI did not comply with the House Oversight Committee's subpoena, refusing to hand over a document which Republicans claim proves that Joe Biden was involved in an illegal bribery scheme with a foreign national during his time as vice president. Listen.
They could have said the document didn't exist, or they could have said that the document exists and we've looked into it and there's nothing there. But what they sent us was a patronizing letter saying that to basically trust the FBI, that if there was in fact anything there, they would take care of it. Like most conservatives in America, I don't have any trust of the FBI. And the fact that the FBI refuses to work with us when we're leading a very credible investigation of public corruption of the President of the United States is very disturbing.
The FBI responding to the subpoena in a letter to the committee, writing, quote, "It is critical to the integrity of the entire criminal justice process that the FBI avoid revealing information, including unverified or incomplete information that could harm investigations, prejudice prosecutions, or judicial proceedings, unfairly violate privacy or reputational interests, or create misimpressions in the public." Now, yesterday, Comer and other Republicans on the House Oversight Committee revealed some of their findings about the Biden family's business dealings. They say the Bidens have received millions of dollars from Chinese business partners, despite President Biden repeatedly saying this isn't true.
The Bidens have received millions of dollars from China. It is inconceivable that the president did not know it. The White House refuses to correct the president's statements, showing the president is now using the federal government to run interference for his families and his own role in these schemes.
Comer also outlining exactly which members of the Biden family were allegedly paid as part of this so-called influence peddling scheme. He says it includes Hunter Biden, President Biden's brother James and his wife, Hunter's current wife and ex-wife, and, quote, 3 children of the president's son and the president's brother. And guys, the Oversight Committee also says the Bidens received $1 million from a Romanian national who was convicted of corruption. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan wants to get to the bottom of this deal and the rest of the family's overseas business dealings.
First of all, Joe Biden said his family took no money from China. Looks like that's not accurate. Then he was out talking about corruption, and it looks like his family was receiving money from a corrupt Romanian. The Biden family set up 20 some of these LLCs they set up, receiving millions of dollars from foreign entities. That money is then paid out to members of the Biden family, multiple members of the Biden family. And you get to the fundamental question, for what? What did they do? What was their legitimate business?
The White House has repeatedly denied Comer's claims, saying he is trying to score political points by attacking the Biden family. Ashley, Todd.
Brooke, thank you so much to break down. Let's bring in Brandy Cruz. Do that. She's the host of the Undivided podcast. Brandy, big picture here. The phrase that we're hearing is influence peddling. To me, that sounds like a pretty benign phrase. Doesn't this look like good old-fashioned garden variety bribery to you?
Well, I mean, Jim Jordan said it very well, which is for what?
How
right?
could they say
Kingdom
this
James
about our
had a line
damn
that, to
president?
me, tells
How
the whole
dare
story.
they?
He said something to the effect of, I find it hard to believe that Hunter Biden was charismatic enough that he could convince foreign nationals not only to wire him a bunch of money, but 8 of his family members a bunch of money. And he said there had to have been a return on that investment. So it's entirely appropriate for this to be looked at. It should be bipartisan. It shouldn't be something that's only being led by Republicans. I would really look forward to the day where we don't have to wonder about the criminal wrongdoings of the person who's in the White House and their family members. But again, I think it just speaks to the state of American politics that something like this that could have a direct threat to our national security is being treated in such a partisan manner.
Yeah, I think people are missing the big picture with what you said, national security to our country. The White House, they called the committee's investigation, quote, evidence-free. But also I need your thoughts on the FBI showing zero transparency with the American people with this committee. If there's nothing to hide, then why not just turn it all over?
Look, and if you're giving the FBI the benefit of the doubt, if they are investigating actively behind the scenes, then, maybe it's appropriate for them to keep some things close to the vest. But the FBI also has to realize that there is, as Jim Jordan pointed out, some caution from Americans and a little bit of disbelief from Americans in whether the FBI is conducting its duties free of political influence. And so I think that given the climate that we're in, the more transparent the FBI can be, the better. You have very serious accusations being levied against the Biden family. And if the FBI has a document that could either prove or disprove those allegations, I think it would be best for the country that they bring it forth.
And there is a way to do it without revealing confidential sources. There is always a way. The FBI just doesn't want to do it. And that speaks volumes, and that's scary. Meantime, Donald Trump covering a lot of ground at a CNN town hall last night. Take a look.
If elected president again, what is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Drill, baby, drill.
You think the U.S. should default if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans
Well,
are
you might
demanding?
as well do it now because you'll do it later.
Do you agree with deploying troops to the border?
You're going to have millions of people pouring into our country right now at a level that nobody's ever seen before. They're living in Central Park in New York City. The city is being swamped. Los Angeles is being swamped. Iowa is being swamped.
How would you deal with the increasing threat posed by Vladimir Putin?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
Look, Brandy, he went on CNN to win over Democrats and independents. Did he succeed?
Empty promises once
Well, gosh,
again.
I'm as an independent.
That's all
I've never
any
been a
of
fan
them are
Donald
good
Trump. A
for.
CNN town hall isn't going to change that. I thought that. So first of all, I reject the notion that CNN shouldn't have platformed Donald Trump. People
Promises.
just losing it on Twitter that they would give him a platform. He is the former president and the leading contender on the Republican side to be the president again, and so it's just silly. I don't know if he won any. I think people are very firmly ingrained on Donald Trump at this point. Either you already like him or you don't. And I just don't see that changing very much. I will say I had to laugh. I don't know if you saw the trending hashtags on Twitter today, boycott CNN, with a bunch of people on the left saying, oh, we're not going to watch CNN anymore. And I have to wonder, where have you guys been? Because the rest of us have been boycotting CNN for a long time.
AOC kind of lost her mind on Twitter over it last night. I did catch that. But it does make you wonder if the state of the country
I wonder
is
if she
in
found
just
it,
such
if she
disarray.
lost it.
If some independents, even Democrats, they're just tired of what they're seeing and they're like, you know what, maybe it wasn't that bad under Donald Trump. We'll see. You know, we got a little bit of time left. Brady Cruz, thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
All right, we have another video here brought to you by Redacted. Please like, share, and subscribe. Tell them Larry James 965 sent you. This video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes only. The title of the video is Heard from Russia's Space Agency Drops Bombshell, Claims Did Americans Fake Moon Landing? Well, of course they did.
This is like a palate cleanser story for the day. This is a crazy story. But here's a question for you. Did the United States land on the moon? Just drop it in the comment right now. Just let us know in the comments field here. Did the United States land on the moon? I already see hundreds of people saying no. Okay. Just let us know your thoughts on this. Seems like an easy thing to prove, right? We know the landing site. We know exactly where they apparently landed, right? Show us the landing sites. Show us the evidence. And yet the former head of Russia's space agency and certain Russian academics can't seem to find any evidence at all that the United States actually landed on the moon. Oh boy, the story is going to piss off a lot of people. So here's the guy by the name of Dmitry Rogozin. There he is. That's Dmitry. And he worked at Russia's version of NASA. Not only did he work there, he ran it. He's like the Bill Nelson of Russia, running NASA. So Dmitry was the head of Russia's space agency. He later became the prime minister of defense and ambassador to NATO. He has a degree in journalism, so he knows how to ask questions, pertinent questions, and a degree in economics, a graduate degree in economics. His parents were scientists, and he's not afraid to ask actual questions, as good scientists do. Well, he just posted something on his Telegram channel. He has almost 90,000 subscribers on his Telegram channel. And I've gotten the translated version of it from Russian, but he posted it, and it's very fascinating. So here's his Telegram channel, and it's Rogozin at the front. That's what he calls his Telegram channel. And he says he admitted that about 10 years ago, while he was the head of the agency, he went on a bit of a spirit quest. He was trying to understand something that didn't make a lot of sense to him. You see, he was trying to understand how Soviet cosmonauts did multi-day expeditions in order to land on the moon, but when they returned, they could barely stand on their feet at all, almost like they were handicapped. They had to undergo very long recovery times. And he couldn't understand then how the Americans emerged from the lunar modules, looking like they had just stayed at the Four Seasons.
Because they're Nephilims.
It didn't make any sense to him. It didn't make any sense to him that they were they came back refreshed. You know, when they landed in those modules and they got out and they looked all refreshed.
You know the theory of Nephilims from the Bible, like the angels came down and made superhumans, basically.
Yeah.
So it could be that.
Maybe it could be. So he started asking some questions like, why would, you see the videos of these guys landing on the moon, right? You see these videos of them, the lunar modules landing in the ocean, and they get out and they looked like, they had just stayed at a Four Seasons. Like they're all refreshed. It didn't make any sense to him. So he started asking some tough questions at the space agency.
Four Season moon.
We've got first contact. One of the biggest and most profound questions.
Yeah. So he started asking some tough questions at the space agency that he was in charge of. He wanted to know where the evidence was that the Apollo 11 moon mission ever reached the lunar surface. Surely, we have, as a competing space agency, we would have overwhelming evidence. We would have photographs of the landing sites, right? You would absolutely have that. You would know with pinpoint accuracy where the Americans had landed. Materials, scientific reports, all of it. We were in a Cold War with these guys. They would know every movement and sorts of studies. How did the Americans do this? And yet he found nothing at the space agency. Nothing. I'm going to quote him now. This is Dmitry. About 10 years ago, when I worked in government, I sent an official request to the Roscosmos, which is their version of NASA, to provide me with documentary evidence of the Americans' stay on the moon. They were there for days, right? Which at the time was still at the disposal of the federal agency, he says. He continues, I was painfully embarrassed by the fact that the Soviet cosmonauts returning from multi-day expeditions could barely stand on their feet and underwent a long recovery after such flights. And the Americans crawled out of their lunar ships like cucumbers from the garden, he says. He kept pushing his government, give me the evidence that the Americans landed on the moon. And finally, he got a response from a Russian cosmonaut who basically told him to go pound sand for even asking the question. And he sent him a book. He sent him a book called Conquest of the Moon with a comment written by the cosmonaut Leonov that he said the Americans were there because they told him themselves that they were there. That's literally the only evidence he received, that a cosmonaut says they were there because an American told me they were there. Okay. So the only evidence he got from a cosmonaut was from an American who spoke to him. Yeah, we were on the moon. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, great. So this guy, the former head of the space agency, didn't give up. He says he continued to search for this evidence, but he found nothing. The only thing he got was anger from within his own space agency because of the relationship with NASA. They had a good relationship with NASA. And they didn't want it to be compromised. They told him to drop it, basically, and that he would, quote, aggravate an international situation. So shut up. Don't ask questions. Don't ask anything. But he didn't stop there.
What the hell are you talking about? Our government never lied in a day in its existence. How dare you?
This is true.
How
because
dare
in 2018, academic E.B. Elektronov from the Russian Academy of Sciences gave a really weird interview on Russian radio called Moscow Speaks radio show. And he admitted that, yes, Dmitry did ask him for evidence that the Americans had landed on the moon. So he confirmed the story. And he was put off by the question he described in the interview. And he admits this on radio. There he is. That was the academic who was put off by this. That how dare you ask me this question? And he said basically he was asked, Dmitry then confirmed he wanted him to show him the landing sites. Because clearly, you're part of this. You're an academic who worked at the agency. You know where these landing sites are. You have the materials, the evidence, the studies, all of it. And he said he wouldn't look. He wouldn't look. And the reason he wouldn't look, according to this author, and you can speculate, but according to this author of this piece, says that they would find virginal sites. Nothing there. No evidence that the Americans had landed in those sites at all. If they examined them, there wouldn't be debris. There wouldn't be boxes left over. There wouldn't be a rover that they left behind. There wouldn't be golf clubs. There wouldn't be anything that they purported to have landed there with.
MTV flag?
Yeah, the MTV flag. That wasn't there. But the American flag, like they would be able to find this stuff easily. But he said he was told, no, don't ask questions. Stop asking questions. I think this is an amazing story. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. What do you think about this? Head of the Russian Space Agency saying, I would just love to see some evidence of it. I'm just asking a simple scientific question. How are our cosmonauts coming back from these missions and can't even walk?
And they're wrecked.
And we have video footage of them coming down in the water, and they're like, doo doo doo, and a little rough, a little rough.
And you would think, because the Russians, their disinformation, that they'd be motivated to
show that Americans didn't land on the moon.
to disrupt this story,
Right.
But so then why are they protecting America?
Well, and
this
again, I think
narrative?
because the space agency is sort of like extracurricular. It's like the space agencies really are like, hey, whatever you guys governments are going to do and fight a war, like with the space agencies are kind of like this, like it's like a really tight knit community of scientists and stuff, and maybe they're just defending who they think are their brethren. I don't know. What do you think, David?
Just downloaded a game that says real cool the pin game. There's no way that can.
Well, I was going to say, like, I feel like all of these issues, if we had data to back up these questions that people ask us, we would be proud to be able to give it to them. Like, yeah, we'd be proud to give them that info. Here's all the data you want. We were first, all this other stuff. It's like all the softball questions they get, that they can't answer. It's like if they could answer them truthfully, they would be happy to answer them, but they never can. So if they can't provide data, that leads me to question.
And all we have then is the film footage, right? And we have a lack of data. So we don't have it. We don't have there's no we have super telescopes that can with pinpoint accuracy and satellites and get amazing resolution. We have the Hubble
see
telescope.
into other galaxies.
Yeah, we can look at the Andromeda galaxy, for crying out loud. You mean to tell me we can't zoom in on a crater? And show us the stuff. Wouldn't that be a great thing? Hey, and by the way, he also brings up the point. I forgot to mention this part of the piece. This is a big part of Dimitri's point here, which is we haven't been back. He said he couldn't understand how the Americans were able to get to the moon with technology that you couldn't even power a USB-C drive today. How in the world did they get to the moon and they haven't been back for 56 years and they don't even have the technology today to get back to the moon? It's a great question. Why haven't we been back?
Those are big questions.
Yeah,
Those are big, legitimate questions. You're blowing my mind.
We don't have the technology. We didn't have it then. Why don't we have it now? And we still can't go back? These are great questions. I'm fascinated by this. There was one final thought I had on the telescope piece of this, or just the zooming in of this. All we have then, of course, is like the video evidence. And remember when Neil Armstrong and the crew were sat there at that press conference, people always remark how bizarre that press conference was. Like, here you were on another celestial body. You were literally on the moon. And all of them had just incredibly dour faces. And for what, I don't know, I'm not going to speculate. Why were they so dejected? Here you guys international heroes, right? But you're totally dejected at that press conference, Neil Armstrong. It's
it's like a bride after the wedding is super depressed. The big thing's already happened.
Okay.
And then you have to get on with your life.
Right.
That I get.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.
All right. I found a way off topic here. Another video. It has an interesting title. The title of the video is What Really Happened to Bob Saget? And the video is brought to you by Vice. I think we've seen a video from there before somewhere. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, we'll play this video and see what they have to say. Go like, subscribe, and share to the Vice. Tell them Larry James 965 sent you. This video is used for entertainment, educational, and fair use. Thank you.
This is 911. I have paramedics on the way. No pulse. He's cold. Super cold. Is he also stiff? Yes.
He was lying there in the hotel bed, face up, with one arm across his chest, the other arm down by his side.
Bob Saget has passed away in 2022.
Everywhere we look, you'll be there in our hearts. You were everyone's dad.
When he died, it felt like a small piece of my growing up had really ended. It was very shocking.
Bob Saget's death, while tragic, was really suspicious because of the injuries that he sustained.
He had a variety of fractures at the back of his skull, extending all the way around to the front of the skull.
There's no way that this was just a fall. I mean,
Oh, come on. He fell.
your head breaks.
He tripped over his slipper, and that was it.
Bob Saget was murdered by some unknown force.
Hulk Hogan has been ensnared by the belief that COVID-19 vaccine killed Bob Saget.
You're gonna fall so quick and hit your head on that lip of the shower.
There's certainly a lot of unanswered questions.
911 emergency.
The official narrative doesn't tell the whole story.
But you really have to look at everything. You still have to go down that rabbit hole. You still have to go down that path.
When a celebrity dies, the search for answers moves online, and the truth may be one click away.
One click.
This is 911.
4012 Central Florida Parkway at the Ritz.
I have paramedics on the way.
January 9th, 2022, around 3:30 p.m. local time, emergency responders receive a distressed call from the Ritz-Carlton, Grand Lakes in Orlando.
Male or female? Is this a male?
As the call goes on, it's clear the situation is grave.
He's cold. Super cold. Is he also stiff? Yes. Or do you think he's beyond any help?
Where's this one? Oh, nobody's here.
Police arrive on the scene around 4 p.m. local time. Body camera footage shows officers knocking on the wrong door before heading next door to room 962. Once inside, they're met with a grim scene.
He was lying there in the hotel bed, face up, with one arm across his chest, the other arm down by his side.
Bob Saget, America's favorite dad, is pronounced dead. Bob Saget is best known for his role as Danny Tanner on Full House and host of America's Funniest Home Videos.
Hey, I'm a geek.
My name is Steve Helling. I'm a celebrity reporter. I work for People Magazine, and I have been covering celebrities and also crime for the last 20 years. Growing up, Bob Saget was a funny guy. He was the class clown. Everybody thought that he always had the jokes. And so he was working the comedy clubs when he got into his early 20s. He was doing odd jobs, and he was trying to make it work as a comedian. In the late 1980s, he actually got signed to the morning show.
I'd be scared to wear that because people would think I'm a basket case.
He did that for a little bit. And then he signed on to a really surprising thing, which was a show called Full House.
And from that moment, he's known as America's favorite dad, with his wholesome advice permeating into millions of homes.
Everybody wishes they could change something about themselves.
He also got a job working for America's Funniest Home Videos during that time. And he was on AFV for several years, and he was doing both shows at once. So he was very, very busy, and he was very, very famous.
For Full House fans, Saget is Danny Tanner, the wholesome father figure.
My name is Mike Rothschild, and I'm a journalist and author who studies conspiracy theories, fringe beliefs, hoaxes, and scams, anything that your aunt forwards on Facebook without reading it. I grew up watching Full House. I was one of those families that you felt like you knew the ins and outs of the Tanners. And when he died, it felt like a small piece of my growing up had really ended. It was very shocking.
The circumstances around Saget's death don't add up. America is stunned, and those closest to him are devastated. When the autopsy is released, the official cause of death is made public. Saget died of blunt force head trauma. According to the report, the fatal blow was caused by an unwitnessed ground-level fall. Almost immediately after the autopsy results are released, the chatter online multiplies.
It's just weird, right?
We can all agree this is very, very weird.
It don't take a rocket scientist to figure out this one don't make sense, y'all.
Within weeks of Saget's death, rumors and speculation about the autopsy report's findings grow.
I was really drawn to Bob Saget's death because when I was in college studying for my master's degree in forensic science, my thesis was on traumatic brain injuries. So I did a lot of research on the effects of traumatic brain injuries and what happens when you injure your skull and your brain. And when I heard that that was basically the cause of death for Bob Saget, it instantly sucked me in and I wanted to know more.
My name is Deanna Thompson. I am an IT specialist and I specialize in data analytics and database construction. I am a web sleuth at night and on my weekends. My motto is the internet is a new crime scene.
But for Deanna, web sleuthing isn't just a hobby. She's solving crimes, recently leading an online manhunt for notorious killer Luca Magnotta. Her in-depth online investigation was featured on the documentary Don't F with Cats. Now, she's in high demand for those desperate to crack a case.
I sleuth because it's the only thing I know how to do in order to combat injustice.
While the police have officially closed the investigation in the Bob Saget case, the search for truth online has just begun. Thousands of online detectives log into message boards and chat rooms, poking holes in the official cause of death. While the official explanation is blunt head trauma due to an unwitnessed fall, users on Reddit, 4chan, and TikTok have different theories about what really happened to America's favorite dad.
My name is Justin Ling. I am a freelance investigative journalist who specializes in misinformation, conspiracy theories, and crazy nonsense. Armchair detectives or web sleuths can do a lot of good. I mean, they can, with the help of numbers, uncover things and come up with ideas or find leads that just a handful of police detectives or journalists might not be able to find.
Fans, family, and forensic online sleuths log on to message boards and chat rooms to read the chatter around the official cause of death, which to them doesn't quite make sense.
We just want to know what's going on. Isn't this weird? Why don't they want us asking questions? Let's find this out together. So it becomes a very much like we're all in this together. Let's figure out our version of the truth. It's never presented as this is what happened and you're not allowed to question it. It's presented as we're all asking the same question. What don't they want us to know?
Investigations have evolved and changed drastically over the years, really over the decades. Just in the last few years is the concept of crowdsourcing investigations.
I mean, what kind of injury to the back of your head breaks the front of your eyes?
Raccoon eyes are not typically something that I would see with a ground level fall.
Atera is the IT painkiller. Remote monitoring and management, remote access, help desk and ticketing.
You know their faces. Anna Nicole.
Prince was everything to me.
Bob Saget, dead.
You know their fates.
A small piece of my growing up had really ended.
Or do you?
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Cyber investigators hunt for the truth.
Armchair detectives can do a lot of good.
You're going to have to battle rumor after rumor.
My motto is the internet is a new crime scene.
This is Resolved. New series premieres Thursday, April 27th at 9 on Vice.
After a deep dive into Bob Saget's death, there are missing pieces to the story.
Bob Saget's death, while tragic, was really suspicious because of the injuries that he sustained.
It's clear the official narrative doesn't tell the whole story.
Less than 24 hours before his death, Saget was doing what he loved most, performing in front of a packed crowd just outside of Jacksonville, Florida. When someone dies mysteriously and unexpectedly, police get involved. After Saget's death, Orange County, Florida detectives questioned an assistant at the concert hall where Saget last performed. She was in close contact with him before his last show.
He came out very energetic. He was very much entertaining the crowd.
According to the assistant and the audience, Saget seemed to be in good spirits and health. After his last show, in what would be his final tweet before his death, he posts this photo on Instagram and Twitter with the caption, "Love tonight's show. I had no idea I did a 2-hour set tonight. I'm happily addicted again to this shit."
He took that last photograph and he was cracking jokes and he's like, "Man, I look good." He's like, "Damn, I'm good at this." So, I mean, he was okay.
Eyewitnesses attest that in the minutes and hours prior to his unexpected death, Saget appears to be happy and healthy when he arrives back at the Orlando Ritz in the early hours of January 9th. Even posing for a selfie with the valet, Orlando Nunez, who spoke with police after Saget's passing.
I think we had a conversation for about 10 minutes. Right before he left, I asked if I could take a picture with him, and he let me. And I snapped a quick pic with him, and then he went up to his room.
The photo was presented to the public. It's on Instagram, it's on Twitter, it's everywhere. And there is no visible evidence that Bob Saget is like shooken up or, maybe stumbling, like he had just fallen down maybe or gotten into a car accident. There's zero evidence of that happening. And the valet attendant said that he was totally normal.
He went through the lobby, he got on the elevator, and there's surveillance video of him going up the elevator, and he got off onto his floor, and his room was at the very end of the floor. So he had to walk all the way past all these other doors. He was carrying a messenger bag. He was looking fine.
Hotel lock interrogation reports suggest that Saget used his key card to open the door at 2:17 a.m. According to surveillance video, which has since been redacted, Saget puts a do not disturb sign on his door about 10 minutes later.
The last time anybody set eyes on Bob Saget while he was alive was when he was hanging out that do not disturb sign. Once that door closed, he was never seen alive again.
But we do hear from him after that. Saget posts the selfie from his last show to Twitter at 3:42 a.m., about an hour and a half after he enters his room, and almost exactly 12 hours before he's found dead.
We know he was alive at 3:42 in the morning because he posted the tweet on Twitter. That particular tweet was of interest to me because it was actually a complicated tweet. And it was grammatically correct. It had proper punctuation. So to me, it didn't seem like Bob had suffered this catastrophic injury prior to tweeting. So that indicates that this fall and injury occurred after 3:42 in the morning.
Rumors swirl about what went on behind the door of room 962 during that time. The official explanation is blunt head trauma as a result of an accidental fall.
I'm Dr. Daria Long. I'm a board-certified emergency medicine physician. When we're talking about trauma, of course, there is a huge gradation in severity. We got from the very minimum of a concussion to getting fractures of your skulls or lacerations of the skull to actually bleeding inside the brain. That is one of the most dangerous. And he had a variety of fractures at the back of his skull, extending all the way around to the front of the skull into the orbits, which are the bones around your eyes, as well as hemorrhages in the inside of his skull around the brain.
I was like, holy shit. He had injuries all over. And then he had 2 black eyes. What kind of fall can I have in a hotel room? I mean, what kind of injury to the back of your head breaks the front of your eyes?
It's the detailed explanation of Saget's injuries after the alleged fall that seems to generate the most skepticism online, particularly the injuries around his eyes.
My name is Dr. Martin Rutkowski, and I'm an assistant professor of neurosurgery with expertise in complex cranial surgery. Raccoon eyes are not typically something that I would see with a ground level fall. This is something that you see much more commonly with a high velocity, high impact, severe traumatic brain injury.
Sleuths search for an explanation as to how a healthy 65-year-old could sustain such a devastating injury from a ground-level fall on a carpeted floor.
So if we think about the skull base a little bit like a bowl of bone that literally cups the bottom of the brain, it's typically a very thick area of bone that houses and protects a lot of very, very important brain structures. And so just due to the deep location of that bone as well as the thickness of the bone, it typically takes a very, very powerful force to cause a fracture in that location.
And there is one more apparent discrepancy in the report that seems problematic. Saget fell and experienced this catastrophic blow to the head on the carpet, but was found on the bed.
After a major brain injury like this, I would not expect someone to be oriented enough or thinking clearly enough to be able to calmly get themselves into bed, pull the sheets up, lay their arms down in a very organized fashion. To me, the very traumatic nature of his injuries does not match the orderly scene that was described when he was found dead.
Fans and cyber detectives pick apart and gather clues around each and every piece of the official cause of death in search for answers on how the beloved actor died so suddenly.
I don't know what's going on, but I really want to figure it out.
It doesn't make sense.
There was certainly a lot of unanswered questions about Bob Saget's death that we wanted to delve into.
A standing fall just quite doesn't reconcile with the facts that are presented in this case.
You would imagine there would be some sort of blood, at some point, or hair, or somebody beat him up.
You know their faces. Anna Nicole.
Prince was everything to me growing up.
Actress Brittany Murphy. He was okay.
You know their fates.
Bob Saget, America's favorite dad, dead.
When he died, a small piece of my growing up had really ended.
I'm not buying the accidental death.
Or do you?
Investigations have evolved and changed drastically.
Armchair detectives can do a lot of good.
Sleuths look at things a little bit differently than investigators.
You're going to have to battle rumor after rumor.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Cyber investigators hunt for the truth.
These are the things of which conspiracy theories are made.
Competing narratives were allowed to sort of duel in public.
Heath Ledger was a victim of an organized cabal of celebrity killers.
What don't they want us to know?
My motto is the internet is a new crime scene.
This is Resolved. New series premieres Thursday, April 27th at 9
This is where it gets nuts.
on Vice.
On January 9th, 2022, actor and comedian Bob Saget is found dead in the bed of his upscale Orlando hotel room. The cause of death is declared to be blunt force trauma to the head as a result of an accidental fall. Quickly, internet detectives and amateur sleuths flood social media and Reddit with questions about the official coroner's report.
To me, it all just seems kind of suspicious and just something seems really wrong here.
Because these injuries were so severe and they just said, well, he must have fallen in his hotel room, people are just like, there's no way that this was just a fall.
Armchair detectives point to something much more nefarious.
And is there a crime? Was there a mystery? Who did it?
Who murdered Bob Saget?
We have to consider the possibility that Bob was a victim of homicide.
The web is abuzz with theories that Bob Saget was a victim of foul play. Internet sleuths from around the globe point to information released by Orange County officials to cast doubt that Saget simply fell, and zero in on the fact that there is not a trace of blood found in Saget's room.
We should have found evidence of that cleanup somewhere in the room, but we didn't.
Experts point out that the lack of blood is unusual given the type of blow described in the coroner's report, and refer to the description of Saget's head trauma as suspicious.
As an investigator, if I knew somebody took a fall backwards that was this severe, I would expect to find some blood and hair evidence somewhere in that room. So the fact that investigators didn't find it definitely piqued my curiosity.
Something ain't right about this, y'all. What we saw with Bob Saget was the coup. That's where they have the impact, where he probably hit the back of his head. And then there's the contra coup, meaning the opposite side. So your brain goes back, it hits, and then it slides forward and hits the front of your skull. That's how you get injuries on the back and the front, even though they actually only hit at the back.
With the severity of injuries like those that Mr. Saget suffered, I would expect to see something much more akin to either a fall from multiple stories, a high-speed motor vehicle accident, a pedestrian being struck at high speed by a vehicle, not someone who simply would fall from standing height. You really need an excess amount of force to cause that initial fracture. You need something essentially that causes that ricochet. So a standing fall just quite doesn't reconcile with the facts that are presented in this case.
Experts and amateur sleuths alike pile into online forums and discuss Saget's injuries. They have a different theory about what happened to Saget.
I need to talk or read from doctors, so I went to Reddit. And I found a subreddit called Emergency Medicine. And there was a Bob Saget thread. I would say 90 to 95% of the posts in this thread were all doctors. And one gentleman said, I worked in a level 1 trauma ER for 11 years. And this was not an unwitnessed ground level fall. This man fell multiple times in his hotel room, which you would imagine there would be some sort of blood at some point, or hair, or somebody beat him up. And everybody agrees with this guy.
It is more likely, in my experience, for that type of trauma to occur when you're actually hit in the head with an object. The force of an object directly hitting you in the back of the head would definitely be consistent with the injuries that Bob suffered.
According to death scene photos, everything in Saget's hotel room is orderly. It looks like he went through his usual bedtime routine. His phone and iPad are plugged in and resting on the nightstand. There's some water at his bedside, and his clothes are hung up neatly in the closet. There is no evidence whatsoever of Bob's massive head trauma, other than the injuries themselves.
One possibility is that somebody did make their way into that room and strike Bob in the back of the head with an object, and then place his body in the bed and clean up the scene.
To support the possibility of murder, sleuths point to one important detail in the investigative report. While the front door was locked, there was in fact another way into Saget's hotel room that fateful night.
The adjoining room to Bob Saget's hotel room was unlocked. And I was really shocked to find that out. Like, how could that not be locked? Every time you go into a hotel and you've got an adjoining room, you check it. Like, I do. That's suspicious. That's weird.
Veteran hotel security experts search for an explanation as to why that door was unlocked.
I have 29 years of experience in hospitality, safety, and security. I noticed in reviewing the report concerning Mr. Saget's death that the investigators found that the door to the adjoining room was unsecured. This is unusual. The adjoining door should have been locked and secured before he entered that room.
As this new detail is released, the comments section lights up. According to Reddit users, the new information about an unlocked door leading to Saget's room points directly to foul play.
If anyone had gone into that room or Mr. Saget's room, the interrogation of the lock would have indicated which key had been used, and we would know who that key had been issued to. And in reviewing the report concerning the investigation into Mr. Saget's death, I was left with the impression that the locks were interrogated and that it was confirmed that no one had gone into that room.
But as the idea of a homicide gains traction online, there are questions about alternative ways to gain access to the room next door. In the comments section of this YouTube video, users point to a hotel employee.
Now, the room next door was not rented officially to anybody the same night that Bob died. But that doesn't mean that somebody didn't find a way to get access to that room and then enter through the door that joined the two rooms.
Professionally, Bob Saget didn't have enemies. He didn't have people who wanted him gone. He had people who were in his corner, who loved him, who respected him, and wanted to be around him.
Online, it's a different story. In the days following his death, the narrative surrounding the real Bob Saget begins to change. In looking for answers about his death, armchair detectives find surprising clips from Saget's stand-up and media appearances that call his true character into question.
Looked like a porn doll.
Stories about Saget's raunchy and inappropriate work outside the sitcom world start to surface, shocking many longtime fans who only knew the cuddly, PG-rated Full House character.
There's something sneaky going on here.
TikTok users point to Saget's inappropriate humor as a possible motive, posting various clips of his raunchy jokes, suggesting that perhaps the real Saget was not the friendly dad character on Full House, but instead someone much darker.
Bob Saget in real life would do things like sit down for one of the most offensive jokes ever, said out loud.
The joke talks a little bit about pedophilia. That was like the initial spark to some of the rumors about Bob Saget.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 miles from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
You know their faces. Anna Nicole.
Prince was everything to me.
Bob Saget, dead.
You know their fates.
A small piece of my growing up had really ended.
Or do you?
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Cyber investigators hunt for the truth.
Armchair detectives can do a lot of good.
You're going to have to battle rumor after rumor.
My motto is the internet is a new crime scene.
This is Resolved. New series premieres Thursday, April 27th at 9 on Vice.
When Bob Saget dies suddenly and mysteriously in his Orlando, Florida hotel room in early 2022, fans flood social media with condolences, tributes, and memorials.
You'll be there in our hearts.
But it's not all love for the comedian. Some TikTokers take to the app to question Saget's character.
I was on good behavior, but sometimes I did some inappropriate acts.
Bob Saget on TV was this, everyday dad who everyone could relate to, but Bob Saget in real life would do things like sit down for a documentary about the joke The Aristocrats, one of the most offensive jokes ever, said out loud, where he tells a story about a dad who, basically has sex with his whole family. I mean, it is totally just so offensive.
The duality of Bob Saget between like the all-American dad with like Full House and America's Funniest Home Videos, and then like all the roasts that he did and his comedy shows. I go to a lot of the comedy shows, and the first time I saw Bob Saget live, I was stunned at how vulgar this dude was.
In various message boards, users point to Saget's dirty sense of humor and tie it to a wild theory about how he died.
So I'm looking into some of the theories that are percolating online about Bob Saget's death.
In fact, in popular QAnon sites like 4chan and 8chan, a wild theory about who could have killed Saget begins to circulate.
QAnon originated on the image board 4chan in October of 2017.
I will die for my country and my family and my friends.
QAnon is a cult-like conspiracy movement that holds that a secret military intelligence team called Q was working hand in hand with President Trump to leak cryptic clues to an upcoming violent purge of the deep state. The core beliefs are distrust of experts, distrust of the media. Everybody's lying to you. Everybody's out to get you.
They believe he was murdered by an angry father because this hypothetical father mistakenly believed Saget was involved with his minor child. While there is no public legal or factual basis for this, and it might seem outlandish, in the mind of the online world, it has legs.
The conspiracy theory that Bob Saget was murdered by some unknown force because he had some kind of involvement with a minor or with trafficking, that's another one of those rumors that we've started to see with almost every celebrity death. It's hard to debunk somebody not being involved in something, but we have to look at the evidence. Is there any legitimate allegation against him?
Online, Saget's crime is being a dirty comedian. Chat room regulars cling to his aristocrats joke. While he didn't write it, it's widely believed to be the most filthy joke ever told.
Father's like ripping off his kid's and he takes his wife's throws it off of her, and he rips off her takes some of her with it. It's horrible, and there's a little bit of blood starts dripping down.
If you don't know, the joke talks a little bit about pedophilia. That was like the initial spark to some of the rumors about Bob Saget when he died. People on the internet reference that joke when talking about this whole like angry father rumor.
Bob Saget, who raped and killed a girl in 1990.
They basically dig up some old roasts that he's been a part of, some old stand-up bits, and there's a whole bunch of jokes in there about pedophilia. And QAnon decides that all of those jokes are real life and that Bob Saget himself was a pedophile.
After his death, it's easy to look at some of the jokes he told, some of the riffs he went on, and sort of look at that, oh, he's confessing.
According to the claims of 4chan, there is actual evidence of Saget's involvement in the darkest of underground criminal activities. Floating all over TikTok in the weeks after Saget's death are photos of what is purported to be
All right. So in other words, you got to be careful what you say because it will be used against you in a later date and time, and especially in a court of law. Don't.
flight logs of the private jet belonging to known child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Among the passengers listed is Bob Saget.
Anyone that's ever followed anything that knows about the child trafficking, yeah, this guy.
The photos quickly go viral. Those flight manifests spread out of the depths of obscure chat rooms and into social media. But there is one problem with the logs. They aren't real.
I don't know where this idea of falsified Jeffrey Epstein flight logs having Bob Saget's name came from. Probably from some troll somewhere. Could be the US, could be Europe, could be anywhere. The most important thing is that we actually have the flight logs for Jeffrey Epstein's planes. Bob Saget is not on them.
These flight logs are all faked, and we've known they've been faked for quite some time. But these ideas are so common, so accepted on these forums that people don't even bat their eyes when this sort of thing is said. Bob Saget was not a pedophile. Bob Saget was a family man and a regular guy who just liked making some off-color jokes.
This is the perfect example of how theories run wild online. Users don't believe the official cause of death, that Saget died of blunt force head trauma due to a ground level fall. And when there are holes in the real story, anything goes online. Internet sleuths come from different backgrounds and all bring a different point of view to the web. Some take their investigations very seriously and are motivated by the truth.
When police investigate a crime, they have to go forward knowing that at some point they're going to have to prove those allegations in court, right? So if you make an allegation against somebody, you better be pretty damn sure that you can back it up with actual evidence. Armchair sleuths don't have that same obligation.
While others are less credible and based in pure conjecture and faulty information.
Online investigators have to start taking responsibility for the allegations they make, and they have to be pretty damn sure that the allegations they're making are backed up by fact and not just guesswork.
While the false theory of murder related to this fake ring is indeed as absurd as it sounds, there is one theory floating around online that has gained even more traction. And while it has nothing to do with murder, this theory has strong, vocal backers who are certain that it can explain how and why Bob Saget died.
The shot killed Bob Saget. I mean, that has like 40,000 eyeballs on it.
You know, was it deadly? Was it dangerous? So there was certainly a lot of thought that maybe that's what had happened here.
You know their faces. Anna Nicole.
Prince was everything to me growing up.
Actress Brittany Murphy.
Well, yeah,
he was okay.
You know their fates.
Bob Saget, America.
This is where it gets nuts.
On Vice.
The news of Bob Saget's death sends shockwaves around the world. 1 minute, Saget appears happy, healthy, and hilarious on stage. The next, he's found dead in his hotel bed. The official explanation of his death is blunt force trauma to the head. The internet is abuzz with alternate theories on how Saget died.
I see a trauma and I ask myself two questions. One is, what are the injuries due to their fall? And then, what caused their fall?
There is one piece of Saget's medical history that he was very vocal about that occurred in the days leading up to his death.
I try not to preach, but I got my booster shot. I'm 65, so I got it yesterday.
I'm looking into some of the theories that are percolating online about Bob Saget's death. It didn't take long for a bunch of these accounts to decide that it was the vaccine that was the problem. The shot killed Bob Saget. I mean, that has like 40,000 eyeballs on it.
I went to the pharmacy the other day. I got a booster shot.
Saget's public announcement about his vaccine put certain corners of the internet into overdrive after his death.
There is a school of thought that the COVID vaccine may have contributed to Bob's death.
I saw that take off because Saget had been very vocal in talking about getting the booster.
There are still some unknowns about the COVID-19 vaccine, and Bob Saget got his booster shot 3 weeks before he died. Saget's official cause of death is blunt force head trauma, but he's found laying peacefully in bed, and there is no blood found anywhere in his hotel room. The suspicious nature of his death has users online pointing to something else, the COVID booster shot.
At the time of his death, we were in the peak of all these conspiracies about the COVID vaccine. Was it deadly? Was it dangerous? So there was certainly a lot of thought that maybe that's what had happened here.
It is hypothetically possible the COVID-19 vaccine could have hit Bob Saget in a particular and dangerous way that could have contributed to his death. So I want to get to the bottom of whether or not this is possible.
The booster theory gained steam when YouTuber Josh Prey shares a video on Facebook.
Bob Saget has passed away in 2022.
Like most Facebook posts, the action is in the comments section, with dozens of comments flying around, taking either side of the debate. But nothing makes the theory go more viral than a celebrity's endorsement. And on Facebook, when legendary pro wrestler and entertainer Hulk Hogan gets involved, the deadly vaccine shot theory gets its own boost, pointing at the so-called vaccine jab as the culprit in not only Saget's death, but also the recent deaths of TV star Betty White and legendary film actor Sidney Poitier.
Within a week of Bob Saget's death, Hulk Hogan's on Facebook writing 100% Betty and Sidney were also jabbed and they're dropping like flies, but they'll never say it. I guess they is the government.
And apparently later on had thought better of it and decided to edit the post. Well, when you edit something that you've posted on Facebook, there's an edit history so that you can see all the edits somebody has made to their post. So when you review the edit history for Hulk Hogan's reply, you can see what he posted initially was, yeah, Bob Saget died from the booster, and you can see what he edited it to. What he should have done was delete it so there would have been no evidence at all.
But it's too late. Nothing is ever permanently deleted on the internet. Once Hogan is involved, the theory makes its way out of the obscure corners of the internet and into the public consciousness.
This is the sort of thing that leads people to conclude that there is a conspiracy afoot. A lot of people respect and know Hulk Hogan for whatever reason and will listen to what he says on social media.
This is the power of celebrity. Bob Saget dies in the middle of COVID's big Omicron wave, and vaccines are dividing America. Each side is looking for fuel for their argument, and one seemingly small comment from a celebrity takes hold. For those in the anti-vax camp, it's presented as fact in the conversation around vaccine safety.
QAnon theories end up in the mainstream media through a number of different ways. You'll see a lot of them start to bubble up in these very niche areas, places like 8chan, places like Telegram, places where you don't get a lot of normies hanging around looking for things. But the most interesting ones, the ones that mesh the best with current events, they will start to bubble up and they'll go to viral threads on Twitter, viral threads on Reddit, on places like r/conspiracy, which has hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Based on the facts presented by experienced medical professionals, it's unlikely the booster killed Bob Saget. But it turns out, Saget wasn't the picture of health like his fans believed.
You know their faces. Anna Nicole.
Prince was everything to me.
Bob Saget, dead.
You know their fates.
A small piece of my growing up had really ended.
Or do you?
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Cyber investigators hunt for the truth.
Armchair detectives can do a lot of good.
You're going to have to battle rumor after rumor.
My motto is the internet is the new crime scene.
This is Resolved. New series premieres Thursday, April 27th at 9 on Vice.
Why does it look like he's dead?
January 9th, 2022, around 4 p.m., Bob Saget is found lying peacefully in his hotel bed at the Ritz-Carlton Grand Lakes, Orlando. He's pronounced dead at the scene. The official cause of death is blunt force head trauma. And while wild theories are rampant online about what really happened to Saget, a main theme in chat rooms and social media was that this was a freak accident. Cyber sleuths point to a lethal mix of health issues, exhaustion, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It appears Saget is the picture of health the night before, performing in the Jacksonville, Florida area on his I Don't Do Negative comedy tour.
He was happy and he gave a knockout show. Everybody said he was hilarious, he was upbeat, he was funny.
He seemed okay. He really did. And it was very surprising the next day. He wasn't sweaty. He didn't miss a beat. He didn't stutter.
But according to an eyewitness, Saget was battling something behind the scenes.
I did hear him say, I don't feel good, but I'm ready to do the show.
A runner at the Ponte Vedra concert hall, where Saget performed his last show, had insider access to Saget and to his dressing room.
His hearing had been off. He was asking the sound guys to turn everything up. He had been sick the night before. He said that he had a sore throat, that he had, that he was happy that he had lozenges.
Trouble hearing, a sore throat. It might not sound like a deadly combination, but in the autopsy report, listed below all the head injuries, there is a detail that could provide some answers.
Now, we know that he had COVID when he passed away. So not only was he recovering from COVID, he had COVID.
In December of 2021, the month before he died, Saget shared he recently battled the virus.
We know that at some point before early January, he also catches COVID, which is not terribly surprising. This was during the Omicron wave where it felt like everybody got COVID-19.
According to the assistant, weeks after his positive test, he was still suffering from symptoms.
He stated himself that he said that he had something like, he said like long-term COVID, maybe it was taking him a long time for his body to get over it.
One of the potential symptoms of long COVID can also include vertigo or imbalance. What is vertigo? Vertigo means that your body's balance systems are off.
Saget was in his hotel room alone. After combing through evidence, online investigators believe he was dizzy and in a dangerous place.
There was a towel that appeared to be wet and used inside the bathtub. In theory, I would think after being on stage under hot lights, sweating, one of the first things he would want to do is hop in the shower.
If he had any sort of equilibrium problems because of the COVID and fell very easily in the shower.
There are hundreds of comments on Reddit message boards with users trying to figure out where exactly Saget fell.
If you look at the photos from the hotel room, there's about a foot of space on one side of the visible door that the bath mat doesn't cover. And that floor looks pretty slippery. It looks like marble. You're gonna fall so quick and hit your head on that lip of that shower. I really think that's what happened.
Investigators think that Bob may have fallen in the bathroom, but there was no blood or evidence anywhere to show that.
To figure out how and where Saget fell, cyber sleuths dig into body mechanics. Saget didn't sustain injuries anywhere else on his body. It appears as though his head got the brunt of it, resulting in the deadly injury.
The linear fracture is what the doctors on Reddit were saying is it's hard to get that kind of fracture by just falling because your shoulders and your back, at the angle that it's at, it's hard to hit the ground.
In my experience as an investigator and studying falls, the most common way to fall backwards with no warning and strike your head is because you've slipped.
Gordon Lafer delivers for Eugene students, expanding career and technical education, bringing librarians back to elementary schools.
Always advocating for students.
Re-elect Gordon Lafer to school board by May 16th. Paid for by OEAPAC 142.
A viral Reddit thread points to Saget's combination of health issues,
He slipped on the carpet. That's it. He slipped on that damn slippery carpet. Damn. It's the hotel's fault for installing the slippery carpet. Damn it.
as the cause for his sudden collapse.
Another reason why would a 65-year-old male have syncope? Well, heart disease, heart attack, heart arrhythmia. We know from the autopsy that Bob Saget did have signs of heart disease and hypertension and atherosclerosis, which means blockage of some of the vessels in his heart. That would not always necessarily show up in the autopsy.
Reddit users zero in on Saget's prescription medications, which are listed in the autopsy.
He was taking Klonopin and Trazodone, both of which Trazodone is a sleep medication and Klonopin is for anxiety, a number of other things. Those two medications together can lower your blood pressure a little bit and also make you a little bit sleepier. If you combine that with maybe a heart incident that just happened just for a second, it's just enough to cause somebody to lose consciousness and fall.
Before the official cause of death is released, Reddit users believe Saget died of a heart attack or stroke because
So he slipped and fell on that slippery carpet and hit his head on the blunt force of the hard, sharp carpet. So it was the carpet's fault. Damn it. The carpet did it. I saw it. It all happened. It was the carpet's fault.
he was found lying in bed. But given the official cause, there are many questions about how he put himself to bed after suffering such a catastrophic blow.
Something that really struck me as peculiar when I first read about this case is that I couldn't fathom how a human being could take such a severe blow to the head, but yet ostensibly get up off the floor, get dressed to some degree, and put themselves to bed.
What we can see after a trauma like this, especially after a brain hemorrhage bleeding into the brain, is what's called a lucid interval. That bleed keeps growing, keeps compressing more and more and more against the brain. And as it does that, that's when the person starts to lose consciousness. And if you don't intervene, that's when they can die.
He may have just thought, it's not that severe. I got to get up in the morning and catch my flight, and then passed away in his sleep. And it's really sad. He was alone and unfortunately had no idea what severe of a head injury he had suffered and didn't think that he needed to call for help.
Shortly after his death, Saget's family seals his medical records. We may never see the last images of Saget walking down his hotel corridor, and we might never know if he had more underlying health issues.
We are never going to get an answer on what happened to Bob Saget because there were no phone calls, there was no eyewitness. I don't think knowing the answers is going to give anybody comfort.
But online, the investigation is never over. New theories and arguments pour into message boards and social media every day. We might never know what truly happened to Bob Saget, but that won't stop sleuths around the world from searching for answers.
We lost one of the greats, but Bob Saget we know. A light is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look.
The carpet did it. That's what I fingered out. That damn slippery carpet was the culprit. Damn carpet anyway. What's it good for? Nothing but to kill people. Being a little sarcastic here. Anyway, we got one more video. This is a shorter one. The video is brought to you by 60 Minutes. That's as much as we'll say for that. And the title of the video is called Sovereign Citizen Movement. Huh. Oxymoron movement. Okay, I got it. Like, subscribe, and share to 60 Minutes. Tell them Larry James 965 sent them. And this video is used for fair use, entertainment, and educational purposes. Thank you.
Tonight, a story about a group of Americans you've likely never heard of. They're called sovereign citizens. Many don't pay taxes, carry a driver's license, or hold a Social Security card. They have little regard for the police or the courts. Some have become violent. The FBI lists them among the nation's top domestic terror threats. By some estimates, there are as many as 300,000 sovereign citizens in the U.S., and with a sluggish economy and mortgage mess, their ranks are growing. It's just the kind of movement that attracts people like Jerry Kane, a divorced, out-of-work truck driver from Ohio. Kane became a sovereign citizen in 2003 when he lost his house to foreclosure. To earn a living, he and his son began crisscrossing the country, peddling a debt reduction scam. Kane promised that by tapping into an imaginary government account, people could achieve financial salvation.
Switch to Chrome to protect yourself from malware, so you can surf without getting phished. Faster.
It fits in all kinds of situations. Doesn't matter what we're talking about. Traffic ticket, IRS, mortgage, credit card, hospital bill, child support, whatever it is.
By 2009, Jerry Kane's self-confidence and trademark white jacket could only mask reality. In truth, he was flat broke. His debt elimination seminars were a bust. As a sovereign citizen, Kane didn't carry a driver's license. His car was registered to a bogus charity. Traffic stops led to arrests. And with each one, Jerry Kane's anger towards authority deepened.
I don't want to have to kill anybody. But if they keep messing with me, that's what it's going to have to come out. That's what it's going to come down to, is I'm going to have to kill. And if I have to kill one, then I'm not going to be able to stop.
Absorbing it all was Kane's 16-year-old son, Joe, homeschooled and raised on sovereign ideology.
Who all here has been to school?
Long time.
Joe's on. So you know what it means when I say take one and pass it back?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. May 20th, 2010, the Kane's minivan was pulled over on I-40 by two West Memphis, Arkansas police officers. A dashboard camera captured what happened next. Kane got out of the van. He appeared argumentative. Instead of a license, he handed over a document declaring his sovereignty. The officer seemed confused by it. Then, a scuffle. Young Joe Kane jumped from the van and began firing an AK-47. 58 seconds later, as the Kanes prepared to flee, the teenager fired 4 more times. A truck driver called 911.
Hello, 911, where's your emergency? Exit 275 on 40. These guys just shot a police officer right on the exit.
I heard a call go out on my radio. 2 officers down at the mile marker 275.
West Memphis Police Chief Bob Powder, that's him in the white shirt, was among the first to arrive. One officer lay motionless on the roadway. A second was in a ditch. Fellow cops came to his aid.
And they kept saying, Bill, you're going to be okay. Bill, you're going to be okay. Well, I knew then it was Bill Evans. And I ran down the hill to Bill. He was wounded very badly. And as I started up the incline, a sergeant was there, and he stopped me. He said, Chief, please don't go up there. I said, is it Brandon? He said, yes.
Brandon is Sergeant Brandon Powder, the chief's 39-year-old son.
I went up there, and Brandon was lying on his back with his gun still in his right hand, clutched in his hand.
Brandon Powder died instantly from a bullet to the head. Bill Evans was declared dead at a hospital. They had taken 25 bullets between them. The police cornered Jerry and Joe Kane 90 minutes later. The Kanes wounded 2 more lawmen before they were killed in a Walmart parking lot.
Prior to May 20th, 2010, did you know anything about sovereign citizens?
Never heard the term. I called around Byron, talked to many departments. Nobody knew about sovereign citizens. I don't remind all of you about this sovereign citizen group.
Today, the sovereign citizens are Bob Powder's obsession. At roll call, on a day we were with him, he stressed the importance of knowing who they are and the dangers they pose.
If Brandon and Bill had known these were sovereign citizens, they would be with us today. They didn't know.
What is a sovereign citizen?
Sovereign citizen, in its simplest form, believes that he is above the law.
J.J. McNabb has been studying sovereign citizens for a decade. She's testified before Congress and is writing a book about the movement.
He has a twisted sense of history, and he thinks that people who lived in the 18th century were free of all legal constraints, and they want to return to that time now.
Jerry and Joe Kane were part of an anti-government movement whose roots date back to the racist Posse Comitatus of the 1970s and the Montana Freemen of the 90s. Convicted Oklahoma City bomber Terry Nichols was a sovereign citizen, and tax filings by actor Wesley Snipes, convicted of tax evasion in 2008, include numerous examples of sovereign language.
Average sovereign citizen today is 30, 35, and is in economic dire straits. They've probably lost their job. They've probably lost the wife.
Paranoid?
Many are.
Conspiracy theorists?
Most are.
Do you trust the government? I would argue that it's un-American to trust the government.
Alfred Adisk has been a sovereign citizen for 28 years. He's what's called a sovereign guru, one of the movement's leading voices. A roofer by trade, Adisk once published a magazine critical of the legal system.
Why is the sovereign citizen movement growing?
What's driving people to it is they are beginning to understand that the government has moved away from fundamental principles that this nation is built on. Where are the limits in limited government? The sovereignty movement is attempting to rediscover those limits and reassert them.
You're eligible for Social Security?
Yes, sir.
Do you collect?
No.
Why not?
If you take these benefits, you wind up being in the status of a subject rather than a sovereign.
Whoa, wait 1 second. Karma. Oh, you guys don't know what Karma is? Karma is an online shop.
You pay taxes?
When they're due. You don't necessarily, it's not true that everyone has to pay taxes.
Has the IRS ever come after you for back taxes?
Yes.
Did you pay?
No.
You don't like this government very much, do you?
I think the government has gone far beyond its constitutional limits. They think, hey, we're the government, we can do anything. And some people are saying, no, I don't think you can.
Adisk, like other sovereign gurus, shares his views on the internet. With no formal organization to join, dues to pay, or leaders to elect, the sovereign citizen movement exists largely online, where ideology is discussed in chat rooms and on websites. Jerry Kane had his own website, and today there are plenty more.
You were born free, now you can live free.
You always have the option to reject their governance and therefore escape tyranny.
Because it's your life, and the power is really in the people.
In addition to sites featuring sovereign IDs, phony vehicle registration, and license tags, people can watch an endless stream of mind-numbing seminars on how, with just the right paperwork, you too can beat the system.
You can't really believe in what they peddle unless you've turned off a common sense switch. They think that if they sign documents in red crayons, it takes them out of the jurisdiction of the court.
Red crayons?
Some do, yeah. They think that if they sign their name on an angle or put a thumbprint in blood, I mean, I can come up with several hundred of these examples that sound ludicrous to someone outside. To the people within the movement, they make perfect sense.
But when those efforts to beat the system fail, a sovereign citizen will often seek retribution. The weapon of choice is paper. For example, when a sovereign has a run-in with the law, they might file a lien or financial claim against the personal assets of the police officer or the judge involved. It's easy to file. You don't even need a lawyer. The sovereign never collects. but the target of the lien can have their credit ruined. The practice has been called paper terrorism.
I have liens against me in 3 states in this country for $500 million.
$500 million with a B.
Yep.
Robert Vosper is the town justice in tiny Rosendale, New York. He thought there was something odd about a defendant named Richard Uoa, who appeared in his courtroom over a misdemeanor traffic offense. Uoa refused to cooperate during his arraignment, so Vosper set bail. And that's when Uoa inundated Vosper's court with paper.
If a lay person looked at it, you would say, boy, this guy's pretty good. Look at all the lore in here.
But you looked at it and thought what?
Gobbledygook.
Eventually, Uoa and 2 other sovereign citizens filed liens against Judge Vosper and other local officials in excess of $1.24 trillion. The 3 men were convicted on federal mail fraud charges. But when Vosper learned one of them had contacts with associates of Jerry Kane at the West Memphis shooting, he increased security at the courthouse and took some personal measures.
I've been a justice for 20 years. I worked 30 years in the penitentiary system. I'm scared.
But you're a guy from Queens. You don't scare easy, right?
No. 30 years in the penitentiary, I never felt I had to carry a weapon. I've been carrying a weapon for 1.5 years.
Because of your encounter with this sovereign citizen.
Yeah. I slept with a gun under my mattress for the last 1.5 years.
Another reason for Vosper's concern is the marked increase in violence associated with sovereign citizens, much of it directed at police and judges. A South Carolina sovereign citizen awaits execution for killing 2 lawmen in a standoff. In Texas, a sovereign faces attempted capital murder charges in the shooting of 3 men, 2 of them sheriff's deputies. And an Alaska sovereign citizen and 5 others are charged with plotting to kill 2 judges, state troopers, and an IRS agent. Alfred Addicks told us he's never advocated violence, yet listen to what he said on his internet radio show.
We do not have the right to keep and bear arms so we can go duck hunting. We have the right to keep and bear arms in order to shoot our own politicians. We have the right.
You said we have the right to keep and bear arms in order to shoot our own politicians. We have the right to keep and bear arms to shoot the police, to shoot your local government officials, your state officials, your president, your congressmen, your senators.
Yeah.
What did you
I'm
mean by
simply
that?
saying one of the ways you prevent the misconstruction or abuse of the powers of the Constitution is by letting the people in Washington understand that you are armed. That's the idea behind this. It's saying, look, we're armed down here. Don't mess with us.
In this current atmosphere, after the shooting in Arizona, where a federal judge was killed, 5 other people were killed.
Right.
A U.S. congressman was injured. 12 other people were shot and injured. Some people might find your remarks troubling.
Yeah, some people might. You know, I find it troubling that the government would try to restrict our right to keep and bear arms. The threat of violence is required because they will not listen. The system will not listen to people like me unless there are other people that back me up who have guns.
Obviously, the guy's crazy. And I think he ought to be brought up on charges. I know that we have a First Amendment right, freedom of speech. But how far can you take that First Amendment before it becomes inflammatory and to the point of being treasonous?
It's difficult to stand up here and talk about your son being killed.
In the years since the shooting, Bob Powderd has been traveling the country, training law enforcement officers on how to identify a sovereign citizen and how to avoid trouble should they encounter one.
It's a mission for me. Who better to deliver the message than someone that has lost so much?
Sovereign citizens have a history of going after law enforcement who give them a hard time.
Oh, I hope they do. If they want to come after me, I am very easy to find. The police chief in West Memphis, Arkansas, 7 miles west of Memphis. If they want to come after me, I have absolutely no problem with it and might even like it.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to hear more about the sovereign citizen movement.
If your business kept employees on
kind of crack a slacking over here. I think we're going to go ahead and end this for the day. We've been here about an hour and a half. Things are kind of going slow. So I guess you guys have a great day, better tomorrow. And don't forget, we'll be here same time, same bat channel in the morning. Take care. Bye.